Good morning and welcome to Wednesday Morning Live. We are excited to be with you today, and I'm excited to be able to share again about families. And we talked about last time I was in, we were going to start on Proverbs. And so we're going to start with a verse today, Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 6. Welcome, Mark. Welcome, Sue.
Can I just say I'm very, very grateful to finally be invited to the parenting podcast. Now that I have been a dad for all of 97 days, I do feel like I know way more than most parents.
We might as well just go, Sue. Come on. He's got this.
I've got so much to tell you. I know everything. And by that, I mean my wife knows everything, and we could cure all your problems if you just listen to us.
So actually, we have 10 questions that we're going to direct to Mark today. And Sue and I will ping-pong the questions, and then we'll get quiet so that he can answer
we'll just let him take over as normal.
And he's also going to offer a parenting seminar in the very near future.
Because we know so much.
Yes.
It's going to be a bestseller.
Yeah, how old is your son now?
He's 97 or something days.
97?
Yeah, he's getting up there. Well, more than 3 months old.
Yes.
Yeah, we definitely know what we're doing.
They actually allowed me to come back.
I'm excited to hear
debating
more about
whether I want to be back.
I keep trying to tell Kevin how to raise his 4 kids that he's had longer than 90
look,
days.
I've got a kid coming on teenage years. Could you give me some info?
I know so much.
Awesome.
So much.
Awesome. You were in the teenage days.
You are doing it all wrong.
I typically do.
This is from an only child who was spoiled.
I've never found a subject that I
but
don't
Sue,
know
what you failed
about.
to mention is that he now has an only child. So obviously, if you are an only child and you have an only child,
only grandchild, this is gospel truth. What I'm going to share.
All right,
just kidding.
We're going to try to keep this short today.
Yeah, good luck.
But it'll be up to Pastor Mark and how much wisdom he gives to us, imparts to us.
Go ahead, ask us the question.
All right, I'm going to read the verse first. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. I would dare say this is the hallmark quote from Christian parents.
I've heard it.
This is something that every parent wants to fall back on. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So, Mark, let me ask you.
That was wrong.
First
that was
time.
Wrong. You're never going to get them off.
She's going to give us the deep version. I want you to give us the surface version.
Surface version.
What did you think first few times you heard this?
You hear this, you're like, oh, this is a guarantee. If I just train my child, he's guaranteed to follow God. He's guaranteed to follow the path I set out for him. He's guaranteed.
Because it's biblical.
Yeah, it's in the Bible. Must be true if I do what I'm supposed to. So if he doesn't, I must have screwed up bad. Yeah. That's surface level. That's what most people see there.
Yeah, it's all my fault because obviously something happened.
And if somebody has a good kid, they must be a great parent.
Yeah, it's not personality at all.
Right. Yeah.
It's all about. Sue, first time you read this verse, first time you saw this verse, what was your takeaway?
My takeaway, the first time I read it, I felt a little guilty because I was going, oh, wow, I better get in the Word myself in order to train my child up. Now, that last half, I never even gave that a thought. Being a brand new parent the first time I saw this, I kind of assumed they would just go on believing forever, you know.
Yeah.
But life doesn't go that way.
Yeah, that's really good. And man, that's so true. Even in today's society, we are so distracted by the world that oftentimes we do forget that last part and we just assume, hey, if I do things right now, they'll be okay. But there's a lot of distractions out there, and I'm more concerned about my child once they leave my house than I am right now. But train. This is interesting to me that reading commentaries and all that. A lot of times we look at train and we're like, all right, training, that's like training camp. That's like boot camp. We have to beat this stuff into them. But train literally means in this passage to dedicate your child. Train up a child should be dedicating the child to God or preparing the child for his future responsibilities. We were talking earlier and you mentioned about being dedicated to things.
Yeah, training has the idea, if I'm training for basketball or soccer or a marathon or whatever, even like on the job training, you're dedicating your time to getting better at something, and it's kind of consuming you. And so the idea in this passage, if the word means to dedicate, it's dedicating your children to what matters. And it's certainly spiritual. It's also like life lessons, like help your kids understand why we don't jump around in the street, why we don't do things that are dangerous.
Yeah.
And, you want to give them freedom to explore and to grow. But anyways,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the training that it talks about here, the dedicating it talks about here, it involves narrowing a child's conduct away from evil and toward godliness to start him or her in the right direction. I'm reminded of we were very involved in a school in Ohio, and the children's counselor at the school, she told me one time, she said, I am making sure that I focus on my children while they're young, and I'm training them. I'm dedicating them now to God because their minds are sponges.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're malleable, they're impressionable. The older they get, the more it's like concrete. The harder it sets.
Yeah, I mean, look at us. Like,
Right.
You try to change me?
Yeah, the three of us know.
And I
everything. Like,
have
we've already
tried
established that.
with these guys.
No,
I
we're
have
trying to
tried.
change you, lady. What's going
That's
on
right,
here?
we're trying to
Get
move
it
you.
straight. So
But I don't
certainly
know
if your
why
kid just
I
kinda-
come up
yeah.
here.
And you talked a little bit about that free will part. That's the part we kind of miss in this verse. Like, this isn't just saying, well, if you do this, the kid's a robot. He's going to respond. You press the right buttons. They're just going to do what's right.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. Every child has a free will. And a lot of times we feel like this verse is telling us that this free will is eliminated almost as long as we as the parents do the job that we're supposed to do.
Right.
That's not at all what
If I
this,
figure
this
out the right
passage is
formula.
saying.
No, I want to throw one other thing in.
Yeah, throw it in. Don't hit
will.
me with it, but throw it.
Okay, I will. So hopefully you can catch it. He is telling us to train our children. The thing that I hate to see is when you have parents doing everything for the child and protecting that child from
Right.
learning how to
That's good.
do things.
Right.
You know, they should learn how to, I mean, this is both spiritual and physical.
Yeah.
They should know, whether it be a little girl or a boy, how to cook. You know, once they get out on their own, what are they going to make enough money to eat at McDonald's every day?
Yeah.
But have you had
Teaching
the
them
double
right and
cheeseburgers?
wrong is also.
The double
and
cheeseburger does have pickles on
And
it.
it's
So
$1.98. I'm just saying. I know you can't do it every. Go ahead, Sue. We're catching what you're throwing. Keep throwing. Keep throwing. I'm
you're
sorry.
changing us. You're making changes.
Yes, we're listening. We are impressionable. We are sponges.
let me tell you about impressionable.
Okay, so
All right.
then.
Continue with your thought.
Well, it's gone now. I
Well,
mean,
no, you're right. A coach would never run the drill for the kids. They coach them. They help them improve. They point out where they need to get better. And if we just do everything for our kid, right? Protect them, overprotect them, helicopter parent, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not showing love. I mean, even in nature, you see, you know, the eagle kicking
them out
their
of the
kid
nest.
out of the nest.
Get out of here.
You know, they're still protecting them by, I mean, if they're going straight down, it'll go and swoop and give them another
Help 'em.
chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's not going to do it for them,
Right.
you know.
Yeah,
And
my-
I think that's a shame.
My brother-in-law told me one time. He said, "Your kids," and we're kind of getting a little off topic, but he said,
No.
or I am. I'm sorry, but he said, "I want my kids to know two things. I want them to know that I love them and I'm proud of them. I want them personally to know that they're loved
Yeah.
and that I'm proud of them. Are they going to make wrong decisions? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be there to help them, not fix it, but help them." And that's a very good point.
Exactly.
It's not
Exactly.
hovering. It's not. My son's coach last week came up and said, "I'm going to be really hard about kids who strike out on the third strike or strike out looking,
Yeah.
not swinging."
Right.
And they had to explain it to the parents, and I was like, "Yeah, absolutely, do it." But there are a lot of parents there who are like, "Oh, not my kid. He just doesn't understand." And it's- there
Caleb's not in the
is
Little League anymore. He's in the 9 to 12 now.
right.
Those
Yeah,
kids-
he's the bigger kids, and
That's
that's
right.
where and you do need to train. You
Yep.
do need to dedicate. But it's also the idea of dedicating and saying, "God, I'm putting them in your hands,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to do my part, but let me turn them back over
And
to
speaking
you."
of that part, like I think a lot of times when we read this verse, people are like, "Oh, I just need to take my kid to church so someone else can train them up in the way of the Lord."
Yeah.
Your kids need to be in church. They need to see you
Right.
worshiping. They need to be around other kids who are growing in church. But the point of this verse is not find someone to train up your child. You got your kids way more than the church has your kids.
Yeah.
Than Miss Shannon does in Restore Kids. Than
Right.
Mr. Pete's teaching them on the weekend. Like, this is personal. If my son goes to an incredible church, Wednesday night he's at youth group, Sunday morning he's in kids class. But me and his mom don't actually train him and show him and model for him the right behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
It's
not going to work.
Yeah.
No.
Kids need character training in the areas of humility. I think that's everybody here. That's everybody watching. We need to be humble. In the areas of attentiveness. I got kids that they're like, I don't even know if they're paying attention 99% of the time, but they need to be trained in that. They need to be encouraged in that, in responsibility and in selflessness, and the list can go on and on and on. But there are as parents, it's a difficult job.
Right.
It really is, and I'm not looking at anyone saying that you're doing a terrible job or that.
Because that's what this verse can become. It can become a verse we lob at each other. Oh man, your kid's terrible. You need to train up your child. That's not how you use the Bible.
Yeah.
To guilt each other.
Right. And in the way he should go means proper way or the path of wise, godly living.
Yeah.
Where your kid's going to learn it, as Pastor Mark said, they're going to learn it from you. They're going to learn it from your house. And this is free to you. Some of you attend Restore. Some of you are watching other churches. That's great. But some of you attend Restore and you're like, well, my kids and I, we really don't have a lot to talk about when we leave church. Well, there's a way that you can fix that. You can attend one and you can serve one.
Right.
And your kids need to see you serving in the church in a way because they need to have that impact, but then you can also attend one. So serve while your kids are in class and then attend with your kids. And you might say, well, my kids are young. Mine are too.
Right.
But they're learning a habit. Are my kids perfect in church? No. There's been times that Pastor Mark has lost his train of thought because my kid did something.
No, I don't ever lose my train of thought.
Silly.
I want that to be very clear. I've never lost one train of thought. It has never happened.
Go back to
Definitely like a train wreck.
a train wreck.
Go on.
What does godly living look like? What does wise godly living look like? Let's throw a few examples out as we wind down, and then we're going to talk about how Proverbs is not an absolute and finish this up.
Okay. I would say godly living allows a child to ask questions.
Yeah, that's good.
And honest answers.
Right.
You know, whether it be a spiritual question or even at home. You still have to let them know it's a dictatorship until they're 18. But up until then,
absolutely.
If you can't just say because I said so.
Right.
Because
I said so. There's a Chip Ingram said this one time and it stood out to me. But because I said so is for a certain age group. It's and that age group's a little different. But 3 and 4 year olds, they don't need an explanation of why.
Exactly.
They need to understand respect,
right.
authority. Because I said so is good enough. But as they get older and they do ask questions, you can't just say because I said so to a 14-year-old and expect them to continue to trust in you.
Exactly. And to encourage them to look things up, particularly in the Bible, so that they just don't become blind followers of anybody.
But you know, most parents are going to be afraid of that because they're going to say, oh, my kid's going to ask me a question and I'm not going to know the answer. You should.
Yeah.
You should be willing to say this. I don't know, but I'll look it up. And that's the problem a lot of us have. We don't want to get caught. I could never teach in kids. What if kids are going to ask you questions? Right. You should be willing to do the work. Yeah, that's really good too.
And you shouldn't say that you're going to look it up. You should say, let's look it up.
Let's do it together.
Yep, exactly.
Let's go see what the Bible has to say.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Man, the more time you spend with your kids, the more they will glean and the more they'll want to be around you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
This proper way you were talking about, Kev, like, I think we need to make clear this is not perfection. This is not saying, like, you have to be perfect as a parent. This is saying they need to see you living in the godly way, and they also need to know that that's the path you hope they walk down. It's not sinless perfection, but it is doing your best to honor God with your lifestyle, the words that you use to talk to people, the way that you live your life. Certainly honesty, integrity, some of the things even the world embraces, but even a step further, humility, sacrifice, just all the different levels of following Jesus that are hard. That's this way, and it is narrow. It is hard.
And it's like, don't be afraid to apologize to him. I mean, that's what we're doing with God when we repent.
Right.
I mean, so why not model that aspect of it
so
with
your kids
our
almost
children?
become an accountability partner for you, right? If you're asking them to live an honest life and they catch you in a lie, it should require you to be like, all right, you're right.
Right.
You're right. Dad was wrong, and I screwed that up. So, yeah.
Yeah, so going back to training being to dedicate, but our lives need to be dedicated as well. And the best way for us to train a child is for us to be dedicated to Christ. If we're dedicated to Christ, the training will come naturally. But then finally, Pastor Mark hit on this, but it's interesting to note that this is a proverb, and oftentimes we look in the Bible and we're like, this must be an absolute. This is not an absolute. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. This is saying that if we do our best as parents to model the dedication to Christ, that the majority of the time
More often than not, that's right.
a child is going to. However, this does not eliminate a child's free will.
This is not a guarantee. There are proverbs that say, hey, if you save, you will have wealth, right? It's not a guarantee. There are people who have saved who have lost everything. There are also people who have not saved and have won the lottery.
Right.
But more often than not, when you do what's right, but this is not something that you should say, well, my child didn't. I must have screwed up. That's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
This is a proverb that more often than not will, and I've seen it. I've prayed with mothers for children in their 20s and 30s who've strayed from the Lord. And more often than not, if they've been raised in the church, a lot of times they do come back.
Right.
They do. And it sometimes takes longer than we'd like. But the idea is this is a foundation for them they will return to, for sure. So if you're watching this and you've got a child that's strayed, you should not say, man, I'm just a terrible parent. And also, if you're watching this and your parents or your kids have done everything right, you might not need to pat yourself on the back just yet.
Yeah.
They might
Look,
be
I'm nervous about this because
Right.
like I have 4 kids at home still, and they have their free will.
Right.
Man, it scares me. And the one thing that we can do that can do more controlling than anything is prayer.
That's right.
And that's something that my wife and I try to do constantly, praying for our children because I don't know what their future holds.
Right.
I don't know that my almost teenager is gonna just flip a switch and be totally crazy. But I will say, as a parent, listen. This is not easy. This is not something that's simple. This is something that you have to dedicate time and effort to on a daily basis. And instead of just telling your kids to go to bed and you've got to model the devotions. You've got to model the Christ following, the walk with Christ. We want to be an encouragement to you. Like Pastor Mark said, if your child is away, don't get down. Pray. Let's pray with you.
And this proverb doesn't say parents, train your child up.
Yep.
You know, it in Scripture, it also says that the older women should teach younger women how to treat their husbands and raise their families.
Good.
So don't be embarrassed about going, so, okay, he brought this up. Now, what do I really think about this? And ask others.
Right.
You know, plus getting in
Yeah.
and going forward and backwards from it or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah,
for
this-
all of us as a
This
church
past
body.
Sunday, our parent small group, man, we were talking about finances with kids. You know, we're talking young kids and finances, and that's something that is weird. It's hard. It's something, but it's biblical as well. But it was really cool for me to sit in on this and listen to other parents and how they teach and train their children. And it's getting together with other believers, and that's why we dedicate parents and children to God in the church because it takes a village. It's a community effort. We are working together for
Right.
this.
And the other thing you got to remember, you've got 4, but you have 4 totally different personalities.
Yeah, for real.
The same thing may not work for each one.
Yep.
Some child you probably have to have them in their room for days on end, where another one you may just look at them
And it changes
and
their attitude.
their
Yep, absolutely.
attitudes are changed.
Absolutely.
So, good luck.
Absolutely. Well, that's what we have for today. Pastor Mark will share elaborately in the future about parenting.
My
I'm
book's
sure.
my book's
I am
coming
sure.
out. Don't
yeah,
you worry.
yeah. And signed
I'm
copies.
gonna wait until he's 6 months old. You know what?
Right. Yeah.
Get
Let's give it a little
little
bit.
more experience.
But yeah, signed copies of those books will be available as well for next
Best
year.
dad ever.
$23 a book, I believe it is.
No, that's my commission. It's $200 a book. Certainly, yeah. This is gold. This
That's
is
right.
good stuff.
He's hoping to make $200 from his mom.
Just keep our
That'll be the
church in
sell.
prayer, okay? We're all
That's
learning
right.
here.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child. Dedicate your child. And let's do what we can as parents.